Hello and welcome to the Brand Scoop Live. You are here as usual with Heather. I am the owner and creative behind Aura Brand Studios, and I help small business owners create awesomely authentic digital identities with branding, web design, and marketing funnels. And I am joined here with my co-host, Carrie Peterson.
Wow, I feel like there should be like music or something that
Da-da-na, da-da-na.
hey y'all, I'm Carrie Peterson. I love all things social media and communications. I help my clients break it down to three things: know their audience, reduce the noise, tell their story. So what are they doing on social to enter into those three lanes? Social media, email, marketing, those sorts of things, to be able to really communicate their products and services to their clients.
Yes,
Yeah,
and Carrie and I are matching today. This was not intentional.
it was
It
not.
was just bound to happen
Mhm.
at some point.
This is what we do. So it's Navy T-shirt day. If it's not
Ye-
on your calendar, welcome to it.
Yeah, put
Hmm.
it on there, pencil it in.
That's right. Now we know.
So we are talking, and if you're joining us live, go ahead and say hey in the comments. And if you are, and you do decide to comment, make sure that you give StreamYard access to so that we can see who it is. Otherwise, we will just see anonymous Facebook user.
That's right. We
So
want to know our people,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So today we are talking about, I think a lot of the time, most of the time, the people that we are supporting through the different things that we do are frequently doing a launch of a specific offer or product. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time today kind of talking about the things that you as a business owner and the team that you have kind of in place to help support your efforts, the things that you can control and the things that everyone involved cannot control, right? Because I think sometimes there are expectations about, how many people you're going to convert into new members of a offer, a course, a subscription. Um, and there are certainly things that we can control from a digital marketing communication standpoint. And then there are things that we unfortunately can't. So um, I'm not sure how we want to get started. Maybe let's talk about, Carrie, from like a social media standpoint, what are some of the things that we can control? And
Mhm.
then we'll talk about some of the things that we kind of can't.
Yeah. So we can control what our messaging, right? The
Yeah.
text that we use, understanding that not all of our followers see all of our posts. So, we talk about this a lot. It gets repetitive at nauseum sometimes for those involved, for the team involved, but it's not for your followers. They
Right.
don't always see it, they don't always know it. So being able to be strategic about that. Bunson's out, by the way. He's like, I'm
Every time,
out
so
of
the
here.
day that you could not get on with me, it was like Grand Central Station of pets behind me,
Mhm.
which I didn't realize until after the fact.
So funny. Yeah. So being able to really be strategic about that information um, uh,
Right. So
through.
we're talking both message content and then like frequency, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And the balancing that between organic and paid, being
Right.
able to remember that these social media platforms are free platforms, it's free space. And so, if you want to really solidify your place and come up against some competitors and let your message be seen by new people and those sorts of things, and how that impacts your organic posting. Being able to be mindful that that is an important step forward, is to do the paid
Right.
Ads.
Right. And that can also be obviously extrapolated to email marketing, right? We can control the number of messages that we are sending. We can control the content of those messages. And the same thing goes with obviously your sales page or your funnels. You can control what the content is that is going on that page, the design that you are using on that page. And, one of the things that I kind of specialize in is being conversion aware from a writing and design standpoint, and kind of understanding the layout and structure of those elements that can help to kind of like, I always talk about it like jumping people over the hurdles to making the purchase, right? There's all sorts of things that we can control from that standpoint. Now, on the flip side of that coin,
I feel like Janet Jackson should be like, her control should be floating in the background. That's right. Yeah, the things we can't control.
Things that we cannot control. So obviously, from a social, both organic and paid standpoint, well, let's talk about organic first. Okay. And I think that this, once again, can kind of be like extended to touch your email marketing efforts as well. But obviously, from a social organic standpoint, we cannot control the algorithm. And, even with email marketing, we obviously have control over what lists we are sending this information out to, but we don't actually have any control over where that recipient's email service provider is going to land your message. Like, we can do things to increase the chance that you are going to land in their inbox. But as things change and shift, right, there's no way for us to control from a social media standpoint, like who that content is getting served to. And from an email standpoint, we can't control whether something's going to land in spam or a promotional tab. Like I said, there are things that we can try to alleviate that. But ultimately, the server that is being used to receive email is going to determine where that message lands for people.
And that changes all the time.
Right.
All the time. So we went through a season where, those emails might go to spam or might go to that promotional folder. And then there was kind of this, well, if we put in their first name, it looks like it's personal, right? And so that'll be delivered better. But then as that, and that's still important, that's probably a bad example, but like, there was a workaround, and then the email platforms get wise and get, feedback and that sort of thing. So then those things pivot again. And then, so it's always changing. That email and those social posts are always changing about where it's going, why, and the platforms that you're using, how they are delivering that. So it's not just a one and done, is my point.
Yes. There's right. Things are constantly evolving. Back in February of this year, basically Yahoo and Gmail and Google Mail, which I would say are probably two of the biggest, like, general bulk email providers, made changes so that if you were trying to send marketing emails out from an email service provider, You could no longer send those emails out from just like a regular old Gmail account. They're automatically going to get kicked back out. And that's right. Everyone is kind of constrained by the rules that have to be put into place because of bad players, essentially. So the more email, it's with any technology, but the more that digital marketing gets used to try to scam people, the more parameters get put into place to kind of try to alleviate those issues. And there's all sorts of technical things that could probably be an entire live in and of itself, talking about how to benefit your email deliverability. I have some blog posts about it as well, but yeah, at the end of the day, as things shift and change, the email service providers, right? Like it used to be that there was just a spam tab. Now there's a promotional tab. And there's certain things that the robots kind of look for in an email to determine whether something is a promotion or whether it's just a regular old message. And as a super quick tip, you actually a lot of the time want to limit the number of images or graphics that you're putting into an email, because generally speaking, people that are sending like transactional emails to one another are not including a bunch of graphics or images, and the robots know that, and that is going to put you into a promotional tab more often than just a plain text-based email.
Because think about it. When's the last time you sent an image in an email to a friend, to a cohort, at never.
Right. And we're not talking like you attached an image. We mean like an image built within the message.
Right.
So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind as you're creating your email marketing messages. And then just to kind of circle back to the social aspect. So obviously we can't control where the algorithm puts our messaging and information or whose feed it ends up in. I think I should have looked at the statistic before we got on, but I know that the percentage of your entire chunk of followers that actually see any one given post has just decreased year over year. I think it's like 5 to 8% of your followers are going to see any one post. And Carrie, do you want to talk about some of the things that will help a post get seen more?
Yeah. I'm spinning because my head was someplace else. You didn't throw me, but I was like, oh wait, that's not where I thought we were going. Yeah, making sure there is an image or graphic attached, making sure there's a link attached, making sure your reach is up, the engagement is up.
Right. So if people are interacting with a post, there is a higher probability that it will get served to more people because people are interested in it, right? That's how viral posts happen.
That's right. And people like to talk about themselves. So if you are always dishing out, so it's social media.
Yeah.
It's social media. So social is not just push, push, push. I'm going to, spoon feed you this information over and over and over and over. That is going to reduce. So sometimes you just have to be creative and spin that message in here's the information. Here's a new candle. Do you like it in vanilla or cinnamon? Do you want it in beige or white? Where do you put candles? Where do you burn candles? Do you burn
Right.
candles all time of year? Asking those questions and getting your followers to react and engage in that. People like to talk about themselves. And so
Yeah.
being able to um, give them the opportunity to do that is going to help that, building that engagement is going to help build that reach as well. So
Right.
you have to be able to balance that in what you're wanting to tell them, but what you're wanting them to respond to.
Yeah. And to just like really simplify that down, because we're talking about engagement and all of that.
Mhm.
It's think about it as giving your audience an opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
You want to have posts, you want to have content in social and in email marketing where people can have a conversation with you.
Mhm.
It's like Carrie said, it's not always, you need to have a mix, and it can't always be about just a one-way communication channel pushing the information at people. So I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. And then from a paid standpoint, right, what are some of the things that a paid ad standpoint, what are some of the things that we cannot control?
We cannot control, again, really where it's going. I mean,
Yeah.
we can target our audience,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they're going to see it, engage with it, click on it,
Yeah.
what have you. We can control.
So I think it's important to talk about the fact, because I don't think a lot of people realize this. Facebook ads placement is a bidding system. So anytime that you are putting a paid ad out into the Facebook universe, you are essentially bidding against other advertisers for visibility and space. So if it is a season where there's more demand, more competition for your specific audiences and their eyeballs, and your ad spend is maybe lower than other people in that same space, you are basically going to end up realistically probably paying more for less actual like deliverability, delivery. There we go.
Um,
um
yeah, right. Like you can control your budget, but it's all about the market and the value that has. And
right.
so you might, um, think, well, it's and what that $100 did 3 years ago, what it's going to
Right.
do tomorrow, what it's going to do in November with elections and that
Right.
sort of thing, it's going to be different. It's going to have a different value to it every time you go in.
Right. And that's why realistically there's not like a um hard defined like return on investment that you can expect from a Facebook ads placement, because that is going to be totally change from business to business, from season to season, because like even beyond just the competition within like the Facebook advertising space, right? There's all sorts of other things kind of like outside in the grand scheme, in the big picture of everything, right? No one can control external environmental factors like the economy,
Right.
or if a global pandemic hits,
Right.
or if it's an election season, right? Like all of those things will play a role in how things are performing. And ultimately, right, like I think there's a lot of like psychology behind when people decide to make a purchase. And we can do our best in messaging and targeting and, try to deliver information to people who would potentially have interest in what we are offering. But at the end of the day, if people are feeling skittish about making purchases, like investing in courses or having a reoccurring monthly payment for something, it just might be that it's a difficult market to get people buying in. So sometimes I think people go into a launch with this magical number in their head about how many people they're going to get to buy this thing. And at the end of the day, we can do our best, right, to make sure that we are giving people the information they need to kind of like get them through the conversation they're having in their head with themselves about whether they want to click that buy button, put it in their cart, and finish the purchase. But we can't actually make them purchase.
Right. Right. And so you think of the grocery store, right? What is always by the register?
Candy bars.
Candy bars. Those quick, Wild magazine.
I always, especially right as we shift into this fall season, like I will be picking up some cookie magazine. It's like, I don't need it. It's the same. It's most of the time it's 90% the same cookie recipes that have been in the past 10 years, right? But sometimes they get me.
Right. And so being able to have things, and that's something the grocery store can control. They can control what goes right there by the register. They don't have filet mignon sitting there because that's not a quick impulse purchase.
Right.
They have $2 candy bars, and that's more of a quick impulse purchase. It looks good. It tastes good. It's quick. It's cheap-ish. I don't know. But I think that those are things that you can control as that entrepreneur. And now they don't know how many, just like we don't know, you don't know how many, you're going to sell, but you can't just randomly think, I'm going to do this and get this. It's just doesn't equate that way. And there's too many variables to be able to make it more defined.
Yeah. And I think if we're thinking about like a digital marketing funnel standpoint, to me, the candy bar offer at the grocery store checkout, that's your upsell. Like there are ways, right, that you can have your primary offer, but then you can also do like a secondary upsell of another, like a lower ticket offer. Doesn't always have to be lower ticket. It has to be aligned with whatever the primary offer is. But that is something that you can kind of get them as they are actively preparing to purchase, increase that cart value a little bit more and get some additional income from those people that are interested. They are warm leads because they've already started to take the action of making that purchase.
Will you talk a little bit about something we can't control is market reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can do our best in trying to research and kind of do some pulse points before we ever get to the point that we are saying, yes, we're putting this offer out into the world, right? We can do some research. We can do some polling with our existing audience to see if to kind of like, once again, you have these channels that you have access to have conversations with your customers through email marketing, through social media posts and engagement, to get their thoughts and opinions on things. Get thoughts and opinions from the people who you already have in your sphere, and do some preliminary research to figure out if it's something that there is an interest in. But there are, right, like, it is important to do that preliminary research to see if there is interest, but just because people tell you that they are interested in it does not mean that all of those people will actually purchase at the time that you launch it. Right? Because there's all sorts of factors that might play into things. That person might have other bills that are taking precedence. They might not be interested in getting something at the frequency that you're wanting to put it out for at. Like, there's all sorts of things, but yes, essentially we can try to do research to understand what offers our audience is interested in, but that doesn't mean that when we put it out there that the response is going to just be like that is one of the biggest things I think that we don't have any way of knowing until it's actually out there and starting to make sales. And that's why I think sometimes, right? And sometimes you release something in one way, and then as people start consuming it, you see some of the other things either buying it and wishing there was some other component, or they didn't buy it, and you can leverage that in that as well. If you have people that you're sending launch emails out to, and you use your data and see people who clicked but didn't purchase, you can reach out to those people and say, hey, I'd love to know why you decided not to buy. So I think, right, it's about understanding your audience, having conversations with your audience, before, during, and after. Like, don't just let your data just kind of like sit there.
Well, they didn't like it, so I guess it's all a failure. No, you have, because you do have control over your response.
Yes.
That is something that you have control over. Okay, what is my response, and how can I reframe this? How can I make this this offer different? How can I reach where they are better? How can I solve the solution that they're grappling with? That is part of the things that you can control in this scenario.
Right. And I think one thing I want to point out with this conversation is, as far as, you know, if you have a team of support people that are helping you execute and implement digital marketing launches, you know, promotions, like organic social posts, whatever it might be, your email marketing messaging, your sales page messaging, all of that. Sometimes, I think we've probably both had experiences with this during discovery calls with potential clients. Sometimes a client wants to go into a relationship working with a digital marketing professional, whatever, in whatever capacity, and they want some guarantee that whatever is produced is going to net a specific result. Anybody who is trying to tell you they can guarantee a specific conversion level or you know, revenue amount, something like that, is not being genuine and truthful with you. You know, it's kind of the snake oil salesman. There's never a guarantee, because nobody, as we've been discussing, nobody can control who ultimately these messages are getting to. Obviously, I think, you know, anyone who is a solid professional service provider, they're obviously going to stay up to date on best practices and use, information from their previous experiences, as well as like industry best practices to deliver what they feel is the best result. But that doesn't guarantee that people are going to actually purchase. The reality is, I think sometimes we see this happen with a lot of small business owners. I think sometimes people have what they feel is a really good offer, but they've not necessarily done any sort of research into the market or competitor markets, or like polled their audience prior to launching it. So then the demand for the offer isn't always there. And so you can have the best ads, the best sales funnel, the best posts being put out into the world. But if it's being put in front of audiences that don't actually want the whizzy widget that you're selling,
Right.
You can't force people to be interested in your offer.
Nope. It's all, I guess, calculated risk, right? Like it's all calculated risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think in summation, right, the best thing to do is leverage your existing audience.
Asterisk, you need an existing audience.
Yes.
Something you can control, right? You have to have people that you get feedback from that are already engaged.
Right. And if you don't have that yet, realistically, you probably want to be focused on building that audience.
Right.
And building, right, like as like an additional asterisk to that, if you have an existing business and you have an audience, but now you are putting out an offer that is like a completely different structure than what you have been selling, your existing audience, there might be only a small sliver of that existing audience that is interested in that thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that the right audience isn't out there. It just might not be your existing people.
Right.
Right.
They just haven't mentioned it. Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't pivot in this other direction. It just means that you might have to spend more time building up the right audience set for that particular offer.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, sorry, you were summationing and I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I think
I don't
that
think
was
that's a word
an
either.
important thing
That's
to
right.
bring up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, right, you want to do your homework ahead of time and try to leverage your existing audience to get insights and input before you launch any given offer. And you want to use those insights and input as best you can to have really solid messaging around your offer. And then you want to make sure that you're talking about it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have money to put behind paid ad spend, you should do that. But sometimes, like we're talking about, like if you're trying to grow your audience or you need to create an audience first, the ad spend might be better served for you to with to be focused around getting traffic to your audience building elements before you're putting a lot of money behind putting a paid ad going to your paid offer, right? Because there's a whole thing about customer journey, and new people that are just learning about you might not be at the stage to actually buy the thing. So it's all about consistency and consistent communication outside of the launch cycle, like having consistent communication, staying top of mind all of the time is going to net you better results during an active launch. But yeah, and then like doing your darndest to communicate your message in a targeted and informed way consistently, because as we're talking about, not every single thing that you put out there is going to get to every single person that is aware of you. It's actually like a very small segment, and then hoping that you've put in the work and the time and the effort to get those people actually becoming paid customers. And not necessarily like beating yourself up. Like, I think that's the other really important part of this is if you don't hit a particular goal that you had in your head, which hopefully is a goal that was like realistic and based on benchmark like numbers. And if you don't know what those are, you can go ahead and look back in our previous lives. We did a whole conversation around that. But learning, taking the information from the actions you've already done and learning from those and applying them to future launches and just continuing on, right? It's only a failure if you let it stop you from continuing, or you don't take the lessons that you learned and apply them for future efforts, basically.
That's right. Yesterday we were chatting about this a little bit, and I got tickled because if you can tell by Heather and I, we are pretty pale. We wear like porcelain makeup, right? Like we outdoors.
We wear small Victorian ghost childs. I think that's the shade name for me.
We are not outdoorsy people, but I laughed because I kind of analogized it to fishing, right? You can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy the best reel. You can go get the best bait. You can ask around, where's the best lake to go to, find where the corners are that, people have a lot of success in fishing and finding those fish. You can put all of those pieces in place, and then you can go fishing at the time that you have done the research and this is a good time to go. And you can have the batter at home, you can have the oil at home, right? You can have everything in place, and you can come home empty-handed.
That's right. Yeah.
And it
doesn't mean that you didn't do the right things. It's just that the fish weren't biting that day.
That's right. So do you know what? Then you get up the next day, and you get up the next day. And that's why people, I think, I don't even know if I know anybody that really is a fisherman, but they don't just go once.
Right.
They continue to go, and they continue to fish, and they tweak a little bit, or maybe they go 20 minutes earlier, or maybe they wait 20 minutes or whatever that looks like, but they don't just go once. And so then what are they learning and what are they doing? And they keep pushing. And I think that is the best way we could, I laugh that Heather's like the doctor, analytics, numbers girl. I'm like the Dr. Seuss of this little pairing. like the way I could tell that story, that was the best way I could come up. Like that just
Yeah.
makes sense to me, right? I can have all of the coolest gadgets, but it
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm going to come home with a bucket of fish. It doesn't mean
Right.
that. And so then what can I do the next time and the next time and the
Yeah.
next time to be
Or
able
maybe
to
you are fishing for walleyes and you use, I don't know, a particular bait, and maybe the walleyes don't like that bait. And you realize as you're, I mean, obviously we can't like communicate with fish, but but if the walleyes could tell you the type of bait, or you see someone else, right? Let's compare it to like doing competitor research. As you're out fishing for walleyes using, I don't know, the power bait, you see somebody else is catching fish and they're just using a ball of old white bread, right? You don't want to just use the same exact thing, but you can adjust your approach by understanding what works for that particular audience segment, walleyes, um, by seeing what other people who are having success do. You don't want to just replicate that other person, but you can take learnings from it and put your own unique spin on it, right?
yeah.
So, yes,
Don't give up. Keep
don't
fishing.
give up.
Keep fishing. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for today.
Mhm.
And as always, if you have questions or a comment, absolutely, let us know that you caught the replay and pop your questions into the comments, and we will be more than happy to answer.
Yeah. Thanks,
I
you
hope,
guys.
yeah,
Thanks.
hope, yep. Everybody have a great Friday.
Yeah. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.